Hi guys, so I'm deciding on this lovely day to do on my walk to approach the topic of um, the way that people approach listening to music and MBTI, because I do feel like there are some patterns in this to do with how people assess music and the way in which just the way in which they listen to music and perceive it. Obviously, it makes sense because that's tied to cognition, and we're talking about the cognitive functions here, so it's going to make sense that there's going to be some sort of overlap. Now, I think that, to be quite honest, this isn't going to apply to like every type. Well, no, it will apply to every type, but it's not going to apply to everyone in the exact way that I sort of explain it, because there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of, people differ so much, in their day-to-day. So I'm not trying to pigeonhole anyone here, so if anyone's like, oh, I'm different, I'm special, ooh, I don't, don't, I'm just saying this now so that I don't, get attacked later on with, oh, I'm different, I don't do that, I don't do what you've said, what now, so, so, breaking away from that with what I'll explain, I think that the way in which people sort of approach music is varying, based upon, quite often, it can be with the judging functions, but I'm mostly going to attack basically the perceiving mostly on this sort of video, because I think that that's such an interesting contrast between them. So basically, I believe that with the types with high NE or NE and SI, the way they're going to approach music is they're going to be reading into the meanings of lyrics. They're going to be very, very interested in the story of what the hell's going on, with what the artist is trying to talk about, with all these different themes. Not so much themes, but I guess more concepts. They'll be exploring I would say they'd be making connections over so many different issues that need to be addressed in the world, maybe, and relations between all of these different things. I'll be so excited in hearing everyone's stories and everything, and because that's a very objective approach to the meaning, just reading into what the artist is, talking about. So they'll be very interested in gathering all of that, gathering the concepts. And then you've got the SI component, which is relating that back probably to their own experience or what they've seen and experienced. And it will be a lot of I could be combining FI in this by accident, but I think it will be a lot of it kind of having a lot of the meaning, the personal meaning in personal memories. That's where the personal meaning is sort of showcased to them, and they'll go, well, yes, these lyrics really strike a chord because they really strike a chord with this specific experience. And they're going to be when they're listening to the music, they're going to be thinking of these specific, this storehouse, all these different specific experiences that is in their mind, and they're going to be almost reliving them in a way. So, and if not, maybe with a lower SI or maybe 5th and 6th slot even, it'll be more taking to a time in their life, or period in their life, but it might not zoom into the experiences, quite as much. So I think that is something in which is the way that SI is approached, in the fact that reliving the experience in itself just is so mentally stimulating in itself, in its purest form, just going back to the experience and what they've learnt from that experience in a concrete way, in a concrete manner, not the essence or the takeaway, but most likely what they have learnt from that concrete, specific experience. And not so much conceptually. So I think that that's the way in which the SI sort of manifests in music, and that will excite them, that will stimulate them, the having their own sort of memory. They'll go, this means a lot to me because of this experience, and that's really interesting. Like, so I think that's the way that the NESI, SINE axis sort of operates a lot when it comes to listening to a lot of music, and that's the way that the nostalgia will manifest. It will manifest most likely in going to the actual experience, reliving the actual experience, and that will be so important to them. That will be so incredibly important. And I think every type can have like nostalgia, but it will manifest in different ways. So yeah. So I think that's the way in which it kind of develops. Okay, so now time for the SENI and NISE axis. You know, both ways. I think that the difference here is that SE will kind of like, it will really zoom in to the details and all the different sort of bits of adrenaline and impact and atmosphere and sounds and varying textures of the music are going to be the springboard for the meaning that it's going to come through in the NI. Now, I believe all types can overlap. So everyone can like zoom into the experiences occasionally and all that stuff. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, if you're on one side or the other, that you're handicapped from vice versa. That would be ridiculous. But I'm just saying that, like, I think what you do is you kind of, I think with the SE is it's kind of like a sense of like, you're hearing all these different tones. They give you these goosebumps, this impact, this adrenaline, and you then kind of create your own meaning from that, which it's almost like it's, I find that with SINE is that they're very good at memorizing words. It's very good at memorizing because they're paying so much attention to what the artist is trying to say and all these different messages and stories. But I find with SENI, that it can be a little bit more a case of like the actual sounds itself can push forward almost like this. It's hard to explain, but like kind of this sort of trajectory that you're going on, this current situation that you're in and the trajectory in which you're going, this almost gleeful aspect of trying to get not towards a goal, but like a vision. So this transformation, this excitement of this transformation, it's so stimulating to have that, you know, that sort of trajectory that you know you're going in, the way that you've chosen, the path that you've chosen. And this music is so uplifting. It's so you want to embrace it. You kind of want to embody it. You kind of want to, you know, you want to go forwards. You want to completely slay life, and you kind of, in a way, it really provides the adrenaline for that. It really brings an emotional reaction out of, I guess, the essence of what is going on currently and what is coming up. And that is so, yeah, that's so interesting. That's kind of like the SENI kind of way of approaching it. And when it comes to nostalgia, that really, 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 really comes across in almost like the way it sounds. You don't even have to like be like, well, it has this experience, like this past experience tie-in, so I'm nostalgic about it. It's kind of like just the way it sounds in its purest form is nostalgic, and that's enough. That's fulfilling enough. There is you know, you might sort of think, well, that's to do with a time in my life, and you might throw in a very hasty, you know. But it's kind of a sense of like, the way this tone is just really it really hits the spot. It really conveys these feelings in me. And this inspiration, and quite often they'll have that inspiration component of, I really want to embody this. I want to embody this. I want to incorporate it into myself. I'm going to grow from this. I'm going to, you know, kind of like progress to my next form. And I'm going to project this. I'm going to project this. It might be I'm going to project this to people. Or maybe with a more TI slant, maybe with the judging functions, it would be more looking at the components and what's coming up in the music, in the structure of the music, and making an accurate deduction on that, and then kind of being more into what is more, I guess, profound and complex in the music, in the structure. Yeah, they'll be very attuned to that, because it's keeping it slightly more, like, keeping it a bit more of an objective flavour than with FI, which is going to be more like, well, this just feels right to me, you know? So I feel like all types can, you know, delve into all of these territories, but it's kind of what you kind of lean more towards in general when you're kind of listening to music, and what gives you that sense of meaning and adrenaline when you're listening to music. I find that with maybe SE dominance, that they might be very performative. They might recall the lyrics in a very performative way. But the attention is put towards the performance aspect and the embodying it, than more so, I guess, the objective meaning, in a sense. So I think that, yeah, I think with a lot of music, it's really interesting to sort of observe the differences. And I think this is the difference with how people approach music generally to do with the cognitive type, but I think there's a lot of overlap, as I've said, as I've mentioned. So that's all I have to really touch upon, but thank you if you tuned in, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'm off for this time, so goodbye.